Hello and welcome back to Planet 40k, the channel that reviews units from the current codex. So we started running polls on our Patreon for each faction every week, and this week's winner was the Primaris Chaplain. If you also want to get involved in these polls and other little perks to being a member, then head over to our Patreon and check that out. It's actually a really good time to get on board as it's a monthly thing that starts on the 1st every month. And this video should be out on the 29th of January, so the Monday come in is a new calendar month to take full advantage of the whole month. Okay, on to the Chaplain then. So he comes in the HQ area of the Codex. The model is 5 power or 85 points. Now this variant of the Chaplain has no upgrade options unlike the other Firstborn Chaplains. Now we will touch upon those other Chaplains within the video just to compare, but for the majority of the review we're going to be discussing the Primaris Chaplain. Kicking the review off with the keywords of note. You can go into any chapter. He's a Primaris model. Obviously he's a chaplain, he's a priest, and he's an infantry. Now the priest keyword in particular is very important as this is what unlocks the litanies for the model, which we'll also go over later in the video. Checking out the stat line is movement 6 inch, weapon skill 2+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, toughness 4, wounds 5, attacks 4, leadership 9 and a 3+ save. So the extra attack there of course as he's a Primaris model. He's also got an extra built-in wound which puts him on 5 wounds, which is also nice. But overall quite standard as most generic Space Marine characters are. As for abilities, Angels of Death, so he only really benefits from Shock Assault and the combat doctrines from the 4 rules within that ability. He's then got Spiritual Leaders, which is an aura buff for core units within 6 inches. That unit will be able to use his leadership instead of their own, which is a solid 9. He's got the Rosarius, which is a 4+ in-1 save. Then his final ability is more for Space Wolves players. He just gets the Wolf Priest keyword. So if you do play Space Wolves, then he's going to interact with their own supplement. Now before we go into the litanies, we need to go over the war gift first. Now the Chaplains are only a support HQ option, so don't expect them to be running around annihilating enemy units. Starting off with the range weapon that he carries, it's an Absolver Bolt Pistol, which is an 18-inch range pistol 1, strength 5, -1 AP and 2 damage. Nice as it's a pistol, so it can be fired in combat, and the damage is 2, so it's actually quite solid, especially against the current meta. Unfortunately, he isn't ballistic skill 2 like captains and lieutenants, so he does hit on 3s. He does also carry frag and crack grenades, so at close proximity you could opt to select one of those, especially in the Devastator doctrine giving an additional -1 AP. As for the melee weapon, it is a strength +2 making it a strength 6, -1 AP and 2 damage. This is from his Crozius Arcanum. Again, a semi-decent weapon for a sport character. He gets 4 attacks base, 1 for Shock Assault if he charged, was charged or heroically intervened. Then add on any chapter buffs that you may be playing. For this breakdown we're going to use the basic vanilla marine rules, but we're also going to add Shock Assault. So 5 attacks then hitting on 2s is an average of 4.2 hits. Against toughness 3s you require 2, so about 3.5 wounds. Versus toughness 4 and toughness 5 you're going to need 3s, so 2.8 wounds on average there. Then against toughness 6 it's 4s, so only 2.1. Then any tougher than that you're wounded on 5, so an average of 1.4 wounds. All at -1 AP, unless it's the assault doctrine then it'll be a -2 AP. And the 2 damage a pop is pretty good. He's likely to kill off a 2 to 3 wound model each battle round in combat, which isn't much as mentioned, but he is a support character which provides your litanies. That's the main reason he's there. So speaking of litanies, the Chaplain knows the Litany of Hate along with one other litany that is selected before the battle begins. Then in your command phase on a roll of a 3+, you can use one of the known litanies. So the one he comes stock with is the Litany of Hate, which is an aura that grants core units as well as character units within the chapter the ability to reroll hit rolls in melee. So this will include himself as he is within 6 inches of his own aura and he's a character. So this one works extremely well on melee based units such as your Blade Guard veterans, your Terminators, even troop choices such as Intercessors that carry the Astartes chainswords will really benefit. So the first option within the litanies is the Litany of Faith. This is another aura that works on the core units as well as the characters within 6 inches. And it will give them a 5+ feel no pain roll against mortal wounds. So sometimes quite handy against those factions that throw out a lot of mortal wounds, especially those smite spam lists. The second is Cataclysm of Fire, which is restricted to a single core unit or single character unit, so it's not an aura buff, but it will give the unit a +1 to wound when using ranged attacks. Now I'm not actually sure if this includes Overwatch attacks, you'll have to let me know in the comments if it's also affected. So with this litany I'm thinking more heavy Intercessors that are strength 5, so they're likely already going to be wounded on 3s, putting them on 2s, which is pretty good. Aggressors as well that auto hit with their Flamestorm gauntlets will also benefit, as they've got tons of attacks And then even all your Dakka Dreadnoughts can use the litany as their core unit, and they've got tons of firepower, usually aimed at light infantry. The third litany is Exaltation of Rage, which inspires a core unit or character within 6 again, giving them a +1 to wound, but now in melee. So like the Litany of Hate, those melee based units in particular would benefit. Not so much the more heavier weapons such as Thunderhammers, as they're usually already wounded on 2s against infantry. Unless they're up against a lot of vehicles, then getting those hammers to wound toughness 7 vehicles on 2s is pretty good. The fourth in the list is the Mantra of Strength. This one will only inspire the chaplain himself. It adds 1 to his strength, his attacks, and also 1 to the damage of his melee weapon. So his Crozius will be attacking with 6 attacks on the charge at strength 7, and the damage will be 3, so it really beefs your chaplain up. 5 is a Recitation of Focus, which inspires a core unit or character within 6 inches and adds 1 to the unit's hit roll for the ranged attacks. So this goes back to the units that would benefit from the Catechism of Fire litany, anyone that can shoot, but not a ballistic skill 2 of course. So this one can be linked with the captain to give you 2s to hit re-rolling 1s, but it won't work in certain chapters such as Dark Angels. Remaining stationary and firing in the Dark Angels chapter already grants a +1 to hit, and obviously your hit modifiers are capped at a -1 or a +1 max. The final litany option is the Canticle of Hate, which is an aura for core units as well as characters within 6 inches. They will gain a 2-inch to their charge roll and an additional 3-inch piling and consolidation movement as well. Now neither of these can be stacked alongside other rules to add to these types of movements. So again, it's going to benefit melee based units, giving them a better chance of getting into combat. So that's the litanies. Now you can buff him further by spending 25 points or 1 power level and upgrading the chaplain to a Master of Sanctity. This gives him the ability to know an additional litany and also gets to use an additional litany in the command phase. It also unlocks his own unique Warlord trait and relic if you wanted to take either of those. So the Warlord trait is Wise Orator, which allows the litanies to go off on a 2+ roll rather than a 3+. Then he's also allowed to use the Commanding Oratory stratagem for only 1 CP rather than 2 CP. Now we'll go over those stratagems in a moment. The unique relic is the Emperor's Judgment, which firstly prevents any rerolls to hits, to wound and to the damage of being done to the bearer. And secondly, it gives him an aura that affects enemy units within 6 inches, and those units that take morale tests will have to do it with an additional dice, then they discard the lowest of the 2 dice. So both the trait and the relic are really strong. If you didn't want to use the chapter specific relic, then of course he still has access to the main relics within the book. So to select a few out for you, the Armour of Indominus giving an additional wound and a 2+ save, and then on top of that you get a single use only 3+ in-run save in a phase. So if you're stuck in a big fight, character versus character battle, pop that in the fight phase for some extra protection. There's an upgrade here for his pistol called the Purgatorus, which will make his pistol a 3-shot weapon, and it goes up to a -3 AP. Next is the Benediction of Fury, which replaces his Crozius and basically gives him an extra -1 AP and turns the damage from a 2 damage weapon to a 3 damage weapon. Also, wound rolls of a 6 will cause a mortal wound on top of the damage. Now it's a shame you can't have both the pistol and the melee relics together. That would be pretty cool. The last I check out is the Voxa Spiritum, which extends all aura abilities for the chaplain by 3 inch to a maximum of 9 inch. So onto those stratagems then. The Command Oratory for 2 CP or 1 CP of course if you chose that Warlord trait within the Masters of Sanctity. Used in any phase other than the command phase, the chaplain can recite a litany, even the ones he doesn't know. And it automatically inspires, so you don't need to roll for it. Now you can't use this if your chaplain has already recited a litany within that command phase. Now you're probably thinking, why would I use this? Now there is one huge reason why, which is if you're coming in from reserves or disembarking from a vehicle in that movement phase, then it means you won't have used your litany that turn, because litanies are done in the command phase. So you can use this at your first opportunity, which would be the start of the shooting phase, after he's entered the battle and the movement phase. So if you are using those methods of getting him onto the battlefield, then this stratagem is a must. Relic of the Chapter is a marine version of handing out extra relics to the characters, and Hero of the Chapter gives an extra Warlord trait to the characters as well. The last one of note is the Orbital Bombardment stratagem for 3 CP. So it's quite pricey this one, but it lets you select a point on the battlefield, then within the next command phase you roll a d6 for each unit within 6 inches of that marker, adding 1 if the unit is within 3 inches. You also subtract 1 if it's a character. On a roll of a 2, a 3, a 4 or a 5, that unit will suffer d3 mortal wounds, and on a 6 it will be d6 mortal wounds. I think this one is a tad pricey, but it can be really tactical if you place it in a key area of the battle, such as an objective. Just be aware that it does affect your own units. Now the reason this stratagem has been mentioned in this review is you need your Warlord on the table to use it. So if your chaplain is your Warlord, then you have the option of using this. So moving into different types of chaplains, there are actually 4 within the codex. 5 if you consider the Jump Pack Captain as its own one. So there's the Primaris Chaplain, which we've already discussed. You've got the Primaris Chaplain on a bike, which has movement 14 inch. It gains a point in toughness and 2 extra wounds. And of course it gets the twin bolt rifle on the bike. Now this will cost you 115 for the model, which is 30 points more than this one in the video, and he'll be keeping up with those units, and he's quite tough. He also gets access to a few additional stratagems, being a bike unit. Now it's not a bad option really, especially good for buffing out those new Outriders. Next is the Terminator Chaplain, slightly slower at 5 inch but has deep strike. It's got 2+ armor save and access to the Terminator stratagem, and has a Storm Bolter which can be upgraded to a combi weapon. He does however lose an attack due to him not being a Primaris model. Now this option is 95 points base cost and then 5 points if you want to upgrade to a combi weapon. The regular Chaplain loses a wound and an attack, again because he's not a Primaris model, but he does have access to those combi weapons. He can also have access to a Power Fist too, which is pretty viable. This one only costs 80 points at a base cost, then all the upgrades on top. It'll be more like 95 to 100 once you do all the upgrades. Then you can add a Jump Pack to the regular Chaplain, which will be 25 points for the Jump Pack alone, which grants him a movement of 12 inches and the fly keyword. So not only is he hopping over terrain, but he's capable of hitting flyers. So this makes the Chaplain quite a versatile unit in literally any list. With all the different Chaplain options here, he can be virtually buffing any unit you need him to. He can go fast, he can go slow, he can deep strike, stay back. You can tank him up with relics and litanies too. The litanies are the main thing here. I quite like the usability of putting him next to a strong melee unit and giving them rerolls to hit, which is a bit old school. I mean, before litanies were a thing, the Chaplains had that generic ability anyway. You could opt to keep him in your back lines and aid your range units with the shooty buffs from the litanies as well. In general, this model interacts with so many parts of the codex, as a lot of units are either core units or characters, so he's really buffing a lot of things here. But he's also capable of chipping away models each turn with his own weapons because they're damaged too. Having access to the relics is also pretty solid, and there's a few good ones in there to pick from. In fact, there's just choices everywhere you look in this book. I mean, you've got warlord traits, relics, litanies, stratagems, then whether or not you want to be a master of sanctity or not. This guy could literally be plonked into any list at random and he'll do a solid job. Looking at a little combo that you might like the look of, starting off by giving him the Imperium Sword warlord trait, which gives you rerolls to charge and it adds 1 to his strength and attacks. Then combine that with the Benediction of Fury relic, which is a strength +2 relic, -2 AP and the damage is 3. On top of that, use the Mantra of Strength Litany, which gives himself a +1 to his strength and attacks. Then if you charge in the Assault Doctrine, you basically get to reroll the charge as well. You're going to have 7 attacks that are now strength 8, -3 AP, and the damage being 4. And you're hitting on 2s. To add to this further, get a Psycho and cast Might of Heroes to make it a strength 9 with your toughness 5 model and another attack on top for insane shenanigans. So now you pretty much turned your support character into an absolute nightmare. Make him a Master of Sanctity as well for those choice of rerolls to hits or rerolls to wound in melee with that extra litany, so it's pretty dirty. It's really making me want to start a Blood Angels army now, because they also get a +1 to wound in melee with Red Thirst. Other solid chapter choices for your Chaplain. Space Wolves using a Wolf Priest will give a +1 to their hit rolls with Hunters Unleashed. Black Templars have a reroll to charge and a 5+ Feel No Pain against mortal wounds, but in honesty he works in any chapter, so you're not going to be disappointed. So on to his rating then, I'm going to be giving the Primaris Chaplain a Planet 40k rating of 4 out of 5. So a really solid option here guys, really can work as a Swiss Army knife and can be moulded into any HQ you want him to be if you combo him correctly. But even as a secondary support character, he's a good choice too. I mean, he's tanky, he's got that invuln, and those litanies are a huge difference maker, especially for your heavy guns on your back line. Don't forget that your dreadnoughts are also core, so keep those as near as you can to your Chaplain too to be hitting more effectively. That's it for the review guys. I'm going to start doing a mini poll at the end of the videos now just for a bit of fun. What is your preferred Chaplain and why? Now you know the options already. Let me know in the comments below so we can all check out some combos. So guys and girls, don't forget to check out our Patreon service for those early access videos and polls and all that other good 40k related stuff. It massively helps in funding the channel, so take a look at that if you can. You can find us on both Twitter and Instagram, to where at some point in 2021 we are going to begin doing giveaways to our followers and patrons. So give us a follow on both of those to keep on top of that. Also don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new. Then finally remember to like the video on the way out. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you in the next one.